Lesson 4. Not until one becomes an adult can one write stories. A child can write a story, but there will be no connection to misery, anger, ecstasy, or absence, and those realities come about through conflict, success, or death. These sources are the sources for writing. I saw a video on YouTube labeled, "A Miserable Man's Piano." The thumbnail depicted a melted piano, but the music was good, precisely because it sprang from misery. Music, art, and writing are brothers and sisters in misery, anger, ecstasy, and absence. Before we get into Lesson 4, I want to say something about crutch words and add a few more rhetorical devices introduced in Lesson 3. Children use crutch words, and so do adults, but avoid them when writing. The crutch words to avoid, except in dialogue, because it is the way we speak, are like, well, just, seriously, actually, basically, literally, and honestly. Crutch words are weaklings. Now, as for rhetorical devices, here are a few more, and among these you will find some sources of writing. Adonaiton, an impossible or unlikely story used for emphasis. Example: The Boy Who Cried Wolf is a fanciful story about lying. Anaphora, a word replacing a word used earlier in a sentence, a kind of repetition but without repeating the word. Example: When Sir Arthur Conan Doyle wrote to his mother in November 1891, "I think of slaying Holmes and winding him up for good and all. He takes my mind from better things." His mother's anaphora was, "You won't. You can't. You mustn't." Chiasmus: the writer changes the order of the words or phrases in a sentence to invoke a powerful emotion, but the sentence is balanced, formatted usually as ABBA or ABCCBA. Example: Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. Quote from U.S. President John F. Kennedy. Metonymy: a thing or concept referred to by the name of something closely associated with that thing or concept. Examples: 1. The Pentagon refers to the whole U.S. military. 2. The press refers to the entire group of news reporters. 3. The pen is mightier than the sword. The pen represents all writers, and the sword represents all soldiers. With short story writing, normally you want to have the ending in mind, but the story will evolve as you write. This is the fun part of writing. You can take your characters wherever you want them to go. In crime fiction, you know there's going to be a crime, usually a murder, either at the start or a few pages into the story. In just one of my stories there is no murder at all. I didn't know it would end that way. Lesson 4 begins now. Let's finish off grammar. When to use the passive voice. Remember that it is when the action is done to the subject. Generally, you want to use the active voice. It is more powerful than the passive voice. However, there are occasions when the passive voice is to be used. When you don't know who the agent is. His house was broken into. When you don't need to say who the agent is. The rubbish was collected this morning. And an assault was reported at 23:00. When the identity of the agent is not relevant. The iron ore is crushed and fed into the blast furnace. When the agent is not the topic. The Harry Potter books were written by J.K. Rowling. Functions. Why do we break down words into parts of speech? Nouns, adjectives, verb, adverbs, pronouns, prepositions, conjunctions, and interjections. And what's the purpose? Oh. Now you know why we need an interjection. It's the way we speak. The subject, the commander in charge. The predicate, the action he takes, and all his little helpers. The direct object, the receiver of what the commander does, whether a person, an animal, a piece of furniture, or a zombie. The indirect object, the neglected one, the secondary receiver of the action. In the sentence, Alfred carried the sword to the battle. Battle is the indirect object. Guess what the direct object is? The sword. It is carried, then wielded, and then thrust. Oh yeah! These indirect objects, piteous babies, are often called objects of prepositions. Each. Why? Because in English we use prepositions to indicate the sort of action being secondarily received. It is less important and, like one of your characters, feels less important than the commander, the brave subject and his verbs. The prepositions used most often are in, to, and of. Example, I fell off the stool. Okay, we need some relief from grammar. Fun definitions. Ironic. Musician Alanis Morissette was famously grammar-shamed for her 1990s hit, Ironic, wherein all the examples of irony in her song lyrics were just unfortunate happenings. Irony refers to the opposite of what you'd expect to happen. For example, a fire station burning down is an example of situational irony. Suggesting that winter is a perfect time for a dip in the pool is verbal irony. When the audience knows something that a character or characters do not know, that is dramatic irony. In Hamlet, the audience knows that he is only pretending to be insane in front of the other idiots. Myriad. Based on the Greek word myrias, meaning 10,000, myriad is both a noun and an adjective that refers to many things. You might write, looking for a myriad of candidates, in a job posting. You might write, I admired the myriad of dining options. Nope. Write, myriad candidates, or myriad dining options. Moot. If you've ever said something is a moot point, you're probably suggesting that something is insignificant or irrelevant. The original definition of moot, according to the Oxford English Dictionary, was a meeting or an assembly of people. This definition has evolved to mean two downright opposing things. One, in the US, a moot point simply refers to something not worth debating. Two, in England, it refers to things that are debatable. Know who the audience is? Infamous. Did you know there's more than one type of fame? Many people believe that infamous means you're incredibly famous. The word means being famous, for the wrong reasons. That's why you'll often hear infamous tagged onto names of notorious criminals or villains. Celebrities can be infamous, but only if there is a big scandal dimming their star voltage. He's in trouble now. Peruse. After a visit to the bookstore or library, you might tell someone that you perused the selection. Same goes for a menu, newspaper, contract, you name it. Most of us use this word to describe skimming, scanning, or browsing casually. The dictionary has news for you. Peruse means to read something in a thorough or careful way or at length. If you pick up a book and glance at the description, that's a skim. If you pick it up, read the blurbs, the author's name, the description, and take in the cover image, congrats, you can say you've perused. Now, you are no longer a browser. That's it for Lesson 4. See you next time.